Okay, this has been a long time coming, guys. I've been waiting for almost 2 months to get an adapter so that we can do a review on a new scope that I've got. Well, I got the adapter today. Scope cam, thank you. We're going to try that out. But this video is going to be on this. The amazing, hopefully amazing, I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing, Athlon Cronus G2 UHD spotting scope. This is their top of the line. And the guys at Athlon were nice enough to send this to me to try out and compare and do some shots. We've got our own scope right there. This is my Kawa scope, which is very good, and I use it for birding. We're going to put that aside, and we're going to work with this for the next couple of weeks and see what kind of 4K wildlife footage we can get. Use it for deer season coming up here, for birding, and just to do some nature stuff and see what kind of shots we can get with this top of the line Athlon Cronus. All right, guys, it's been a while. I've been waiting to test out the new Athlon Cronus G2 scope, which is their top of the line UHD glass scope. And unfortunately today it's raining, but I'm still itching to try it, so we're gonna get out. First thing I'll just tell you guys, on a day like today, it has a built-in lens hood, which is nice. So I just extend the hood out a little bit, and it comes with this nice case. So keep the case on, extend the hood, and then the water will hit here on the inside, but it won't splash up onto the lens because you've got it out a little distance. So that's a good wet day trick, okay? And then secondly, I was waiting. The reason I had to wait 2 months was I had no adapter to use on this scope. Now we've got the scope cam adapter. They were nice enough to send me one to try. And we've got our S23 Ultra on there. And we're just gonna see what kind of shots we can get. I do wanna note, this scope is their top of the line. It is fantastic. Zooming up into the trees there, the first thing I wanted to look at was, is there any chromatic aberration, any fringing in the tree branches? Yes, there is a tiny little bit, and it's not so much a bright, annoying purple. I did notice it's more like a maroon. That's what I want to say, with a little bit of green in the background stuff that's out of focus. So it's not jumping out glaringly annoying, okay? I'll just take a shot up there to show you guys some branches that are backlit, and you guys will see there's not much in the way. This is their top glass, so it's pretty good. Okay, here we are pointed up at the sky, and you will notice that on the top right third, there's one branch that has quite a bit of green on it, okay? And if I change the focus, I want you guys to watch the background trees. You'll see those branches will also turn green. So now, as I've adjusted focus here a little bit closer to us, you'll see a lot of those background branches are outlined in green. And there is almost a maroon to some of the other branches. It's not an annoying purple that just jumps right off at you like the old, lenses from 30 years ago, but it is there, and it's something to note. And there we are using the 3x zoom lens on the phone. That's over 100 yards. We are maxed out. That's 60 times on the scope, 3 times on the phone, and we can clearly read my neighbor's license plate, which I will have to block out a couple of those numbers. But we can actually see that her tag expired in June of 22. And just for comparison, here we are back on the 1x lens on the phone, but I've digitally zoomed in 3 times. So, and I also noticed that if we zoom back out, look at the brush that's in front of this license plate. Look at, there's some stuff right in front of the plate there. So if we zoom into 3 times, how does this compare to the 3x optical lens? I think the optical lens was just a little bit better maybe, but they're pretty close. So is there any point in actually using the 3x optical? I don't know. Here in this scene as well, guys, you will notice that all of the water drops have a green chromatic outline to them as well. So I should mention that using this Athlon scope, the scope is one of the ones that turns up on the neck. So your eyepiece, you look down into it. And for doing digiscoping with your phone, I find it's more difficult than having a straight one. My Kawa is straight, and that way you're looking right at the phone as if you would be if you had a camera in front of you. Where this way I've got to lower the tripod a little bit because I'm looking down onto the scene on the phone. So maybe that's just a personal preference, but I don't like the upturned neck as much as the straight. Again, though, where that could be a benefit would be if you were low to the ground, sitting down on the ground and scoping, you know, for deer or something like that. You're not going to be standing out in the open. So again, it depends on how you're going to use this scope, right? I'm using it for something that's completely different than most of you guys are going to. So we have to take Gary's review in the terms of a digiscoper camera guy who's doing video work with the scope. Okay, if you're hunting, it's completely different. Maybe that upturned neck is a better option. So also to note with this Cronus G2 lens here, guys, this is going to get you a lot closer to wildlife than any 600mm lens that you go out and buy for your mirrorless camera. How do I know? Well, I own multiple 600mm lenses, and I've always tried and wanted to get closer. And the only way that I've been able to achieve that is through using scopes. So, although the dedicated lens for your mirrorless camera might be a little crisper, might be a little bit, you know, better for videography and photography, the new phones have really closed the gap, guys. This Samsung S23 that I'm using, it does an amazing 4K image, and you put it on one of these scopes, it's not too far behind a $4,000 mirrorless camera setup, really. Now the lenses, again, guys, if you're buying a mirrorless 600mm lens, you're looking at $1,800 to $2,300. You can get this Athlon scope here for about $1,000. Yes, the quality is going to be just under what you're going to pay, but the price is going to be way under. Photographers, myself included, have a nasty habit of paying thousands of dollars to get just that little tiny bit extra clarity or sharpness, resolution, lack of chromatic aberration, you know. For us, we say it's worth it. But for the average person who says, wow, this stuff that Gary's filming on here looks amazing, you know, I think we just become snobs. We become lens snobs over the years. There is nothing wrong with spotting scopes and the new phones. That being said, I have and will again pay thousands of dollars to get that little bit of extra sharpness and clarity. It just becomes an obsession, right? Well, I got a really great photo of a heron. Can I get better? Well, if I have some new gear, maybe. Okay, so after using this thing for an hour, I want to give you guys some quick impressions, things that jumped out at me. Now, they're not necessarily good things, but they are things that I noted right away, and so it is worth pointing out. So right away I've noticed the chromatic aberration. It's actually not as good, not as controlled as I thought it would be with this UHD glass. It is there, I am noticing it in all the shots. Is it a deal breaker? No, because we have to remember the price of this lens. Because the second thing I noticed is that no, this lens is not as eye-watering sharp as my Kawa. I'm not getting the detail that just blows me away. I'm getting great detail, 4K with the phone, no problem. Will you see a deer out there at 800 yards? No problem. But is it getting that extra little bit of detail that I just went, oh my God, this is amazing, when I put it on my Kawa scope, my phone? No, I'm not. So the quality is not as high, but you have to remember that this lens is only $1,000, right? It's doing 85% of what my $3,000 Kawa does for 1/3 the price. So you have to remember that. I'm going to be a little harder on this setup because Gary is a photographer. I'm using this for something it was never intended to be used for. So you have to keep that in mind, okay? But I'm going to give you the facts straight and honest. It's not as sharp as the Kawa, and there is more chromatic aberration. Is it a great little lens? Yes, it is. Let's go get some footage and show you guys what it can capture. I mean, look at the detail. There's lots of detail out there. 60 times zoom on some bark on a tree. Bit of moss over here. Lots of detail. So last night I decided to look up how much the Athlon Cronus G2 scope costs here in Canada. And the cheapest I could find it was $13.99. Now here in Canada, you're going to pay 13% tax on top of that, so you're looking at about $1,600 for that scope. Where would I put this scope in terms of low, mid, high range? It's definitely the high end of the mid range is what I'm going to say, guys. Very good image quality, very sharp, well-controlled chromatic aberration, but there are scopes that do better. Now the caveat to that is the scopes that do better cost twice as much. Can you get a cheaper scope? Yes, you can. But then you're going to have, you know, a little bit more distortion, a little bit more chromatic aberration, not quite as sharp. You know, you're paying for something with the Athlon as well that some companies don't even offer, which is a lifetime guarantee. Okay, this thing is warranted for life. And that's an amazing thing. When I was in Costa Rica, we had guides, my bird guide. So this guy was taking us out looking for small birds in a jungle setting, and he was using Athlon equipment. And he didn't even have the top tier here, the Cronus G2. And so when he would take his group out, you know, 15 people would give him their phones. He'd put their phone on there. He'd be taking videos and photos for them. So is the Athlon product good enough for professional work? Absolutely, especially the Cronus. So is the Cronus G2 by Athlon as good as my Kawa scope? No, it's not. They're not in the same league. The Kawa scope, guys, is very comparable to a Swarovski, which is like top of the line $5,000 scopes. I'm pretty sure that the glass that's in that Kawa has got to be made by that same company. There's not too many companies that make these things, right? So, but it is in a league of its own. Now you have to remember, I paid twice as much for the Kawa. I bought it used and it cost me $3,000. Worth every penny to a guy like me. Some people say, Gary's nuts. Other people just realize that's what photographers do. We're willing to pay thousands of dollars more for the 10% increase. So the Athlon is a great product. It is not top tier product, but it is also not low end product either. It falls somewhere right in that mid, and I'm going to say high end of the mid. All right, guys, I'm just finishing up my review on the Athlon Cronus G2 scope, and I was trying to figure out what am I going to do with this really cool piece of gear. I wish that I had a friend who is into birding, photography, canoeing, nature. Oh, wait a minute. That rings a bell. I do have a friend. Wild Yam. Jen. I'm like, this would be the perfect piece of gear for her channel and all of the adventures she goes on. She gets a lot of stuff in her area that we don't, such as snowy owls, migratory snow geese, all kinds of birds we don't have here, cardinals and other things. And I'm just like, this would be the perfect thing to pass along to Jen. We were given this scope by Athlon, and I'm like, I don't want to set this on the shelf and not use it because I've already purchased a scope for myself, my Kawa, which I love, and that's the one I'm going to keep and use. But this thing is too good to sit on a shelf and not be used. So Wild Yam, I'm thinking of you. And you guys know how I always say that sometimes these things just fall into place. I've been thinking about this for a week and a half. What am I going to do with this scope? And my wife is actually going to see Jen this week in Ottawa. So I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity to throw this in the car. Free shipping to Jen. So here you go, Wild Yam. Use it, enjoy, and tag us in any videos that you make. Awesome.